On this Thursday night, China's expanding coronavirus crisis. As cases multiply, so are the number of cities under lockdown. Tonight, the race to create a vaccine.
We're trying to move as quickly as possible.
Australia's relentless firefight turns tragic. The crash of a Canadian water bomber. Plus, grounded, the U.S. may unleash a crackdown on emotional support animals.
Our airplanes started to look like Noah's Ark.
The potential impact on Canada. And crime fighter, Olympic champion, and now...
I think it's going to be one of the highlights in my career.
Canada's Megan Agosta scores another big break.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. China, the epicenter of a potentially deadly virus, has extended the lockdown on more of its cities, restricting travel for millions of people as it ramps up efforts to contain the spread of the new coronavirus. At the same time, the World Health Organization says it is still too early to declare a global public health emergency.
Make no mistake, this is, though, an emergency in China. But it has not yet become a global health emergency. It may yet become one.
At least 18 people have died, and there are now more than 600 confirmed cases worldwide. Almost all of them are in China. Only 10 cases have been confirmed outside China, in Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, the USA, and Vietnam. There are no confirmed cases in Canada, and the health minister says the risk here is low. There are some suspected cases, though. Quebec's health minister says 5 patients are under observation in quarantine at 3 different hospitals in Montreal and 1 in Quebec City. A 6th person has been cleared after it was determined they had the flu.
We're, of course, looking at any extra measures that need to be taken to keep Canadians safe and to prevent the spread of this virus.
We have complete coverage tonight, including what the symptoms are and what's being done to develop a vaccine. But we begin with the situation in China, where those lockdowns are in place in several cities and hospitals are struggling to manage all the people who are showing up to be tested for the virus. Redmond, Shannon has our top story.
A megacity of 11 million people on lockdown at the busiest travel time of the year. Almost everyone outside is now wearing masks, including security forces. Medical staff in the busy hospitals appear to be taking every precaution.
As you guys can see, the streets are a bit empty.
Canadian medical student Deek Omar lives in Wuhan and has been filming as the city prepares.
As you can see, the situation here is critical. All public transportations here have been suspended until further notice. It's a bit concerning, but there's no real actual panic as things here are being handled in a calm manner.
As of 10 a.m. local time on Thursday, no one was allowed in or out of the city. Later in the day, the city of Guangdong, 60 kilometers away, was also closed off, followed by travel restrictions in nearby Aju and the smaller cities of Chirbei and Qigong. That's devastating for citizens during this holiday season in China. Even in the capital Beijing, 1,000 kilometers from the outbreak, Lunar New Year celebrations have been cancelled after authorities confirmed the first death outside of the region where the virus originated. In a much-awaited announcement, the World Health Organization says this is a health emergency in China, but not a global emergency yet.
We know that most of those who have died had underlying health conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, or cardiovascular disease that weakened their immune systems.
The WHO says cases so far of human-to-human transmission appear to be isolated to within family groups.
There is still a lot we don't know. We don't know the source of this virus. We don't understand how easily it spreads. And we don't fully understand its clinical features or severity.
Redmond joins me now. Redmond, China was criticized for how it reacted to the SARS outbreak, and there are concerns it may have been slow to react in the case of this new virus. What are experts saying about that?
Well, Dawna, the WHO is praising China for identifying the genetic sequence of the virus and for sharing it with them. And a virologist in a US lab that helped identify SARS told me that China is applying the lessons learned from SARS and appears to be doing everything that it can right now, given that this is a very new virus. He also told me that he expects more important information to come out of China within the next week or two. Dawna?
All right, Redmond, Shannon in London, thanks. The WHO says there are a lot of unknowns about this disease, from the source to how it spreads and its clinical features. It's important to note not everyone who gets it dies from it. They do know about 1/4 of people with confirmed cases have become seriously ill. Here's what China's Health Commission has released about 17 of the people who have died. 13 were men, 4 were women. The youngest was a 48-year-old woman. The oldest were 2 89-year-old men. The WHO says those who have died had underlying conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, or Parkinson's. Coronaviruses are named for the spikes that protrude from their membranes, which resemble the sun's corona, and they can infect both animals and people. They cause illnesses of the respiratory tract, ranging from the common cold to pneumonia. Signs of infection include fever, cough, shortness of breath, and breathing difficulties. For now, there is no specific treatment for people who have it. Work is underway on a vaccine in a number of labs around the world, including here in Canada. Heather Yourex-West reports.
In this University of Saskatchewan lab, researchers are trying to do something that's never been done before.
Part of our institute's mission is to respond to emerging virus threats, and this new virus, this new coronavirus in China would certainly represent one of those.
The Vito Intervac lab recently got the green light from the Public Health Agency of Canada to start working with the new coronavirus. It's now in phase 1, building samples of the virus using the genetic sequence released by Chinese health officials.
My lab primarily works on MERS coronavirus, so we have experience in this area.
Outside Canada, other labs are already working on this. A global coalition set up in 2017 to fight epidemic diseases just announced funding for 3 separate research teams who are also trying to develop a vaccine. One of them, Inovia Pharmaceuticals, has shown some promising signs. It hopes to have a vaccine for this coronavirus ready for human trials by summer.
Most recently, we worked with our partners to get a vaccine against the Zika virus from bench to clinic, and we did that in about 7 months. So we're working very hard to do this even faster. It's an evolving situation, and we're trying to move as quickly as possible.
But until a vaccine is developed, there is little that can be done to prevent this threat, making containment all the more important. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
And here's a note about how indestructible some viruses can be. A research team from China and the U.S. traveled to Tibet in 2015, and they discovered 33 virus groups, including 28 viruses unknown to modern science. They were locked away in the Earth's oldest glacial ice, an ice cap that is 15,000 years old. Now to some breaking political news out of Ottawa. Another Conservative who was widely expected to run for the party's leadership said today he's out. Pierre Poilievre, an MP from Ottawa, will not enter the race. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stevenson joins me. Mercedes, why is he passing on a chance at the top job?
Well, Dawna, Pierre Poilievre says that family reasons are at the heart of his decision not to run, that the demands of becoming leader were simply too much. Time away from home, the packed schedule, and of course, all of that travel. Poilievre tweeted about it, saying, "My heart is not fully engaged in this leadership race. Without being all in, I cannot be in it all. So I have decided not to seek the leadership of the party at this time." Now, as you can imagine, that news came as a tremendous shock. Pierre Poilievre had a powerful leadership team behind him, a lot of organization, and a lot of money. And Dawna, he was scheduled to announce his campaign on Sunday. So he's really backing out here at the last minute. And that came as a great disappointment to many on his campaign staff. Senior staff were desperately trying to convince him not to quit right up until the last minute, but said that they could tell that his mind and his heart really weren't in it. This now means the campaign is down to Aaron O'Toole and Peter MacKay. One big question is where the Social Conservatives will go now, because they were backing Poilievre, and there's also frustration among many high-profile candidates that so many have been dropping out of the race, including former interim leader Rona Ambrose, who dropped out just yesterday.
Okay, Mercedes in Ottawa, thanks. The International Court of Justice has delivered a victory for Rohingya people, calling on Myanmar to enact emergency measures to protect them.
The Rohingya people remain at serious risk of genocide under the terms of the Genocide Convention.
In a unanimous decision, the court rejected Myanmar's argument the Rohingya died in an armed military conflict. It's the first step in a legal case that could go on for years. The judges ordered Myanmar to comply with the order and file regular reports. The ruling is final and without appeal, but the International Court of Justice has no real way of enforcing it. More than 730,000 Rohingya fled Myanmar after a military crackdown in 2017. UN investigators conclude the campaign was executed with genocidal intent. Britain's Prime Minister says the UK has passed the Brexit finish line. Parliament has passed the legislation implementing the withdrawal deal, and the Queen has given it royal assent. That paves the way for one final formality. It now needs approval from the European Union's Parliament before January 31st. It's been nearly 4 long years since voters narrowly opted for Brexit in a referendum. There are heavy hearts in Australia tonight. 3 American firefighters helping fight the wildfires there have died in a plane crash.
There was a large fireball associated with the impact of the plane as it hit the ground.
They were in a Canadian tanker carrying fire retardant that crashed during a firebombing mission in the state of New South Wales. The C-130 Hercules plane was sent to Australia in August to help with the crisis. The plane was leased by a U.S. subsidiary of a company based in BC. It has now grounded its entire fleet pending a full investigation. In Quebec, police continue to search for 5 snowmobilers from France who fell through the ice on a river. Police and military helicopters spent most of the day searching for them, and divers scoured the water. 5 men disappeared on Tuesday after their snowmobiles plunged through the ice in the province's Lac-Saint-Jean region. They're from eastern France, and they range in age from 24 to 58. A mayor in France who knew 2 of the men says they were experienced snowmobilers who'd been to Canada before. Their guide, who was from Montreal, died in the hospital. Today, the Quebec government said guides and tourists who use off-road vehicles will be required to take a training course. For the 7th day, a state of emergency is in effect in St. John's, and now there are new concerns. More snow, up to 25 centimeters, is forecast for Monday. The Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador says the cleanup costs from the monster storm last week will be in the millions, and he's asking the federal government for help.
We're watching very closely what money looks like and what an extra 20 to 25 centimeters of snow could mean to this area. We've reached out and sent correspondence to the federal government requesting consideration for financial assistance.
In the meantime, people in the community are getting on with it and making the best of things. A group dubbed the Snow Angels is going around St. John's shoveling streets and roads and digging out cars. 400 troops remain on the ground. They'll stay as long as they're needed. We caught up with some of them today clearing out the front walk of a city snowplow operator. He's been too busy clearing the roads to get to his own house. It's been 75 years since Auschwitz was liberated. Coming up, the stark warning from world leaders about the rise of anti-Semitism. World leaders have gathered in Israel and made an extraordinary call to be vigilant for signs of anti-Semitism. It's been 75 years since Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp in occupied Poland, was liberated. More than 1.1 million people, most of them Jewish, died in that one camp, just a fraction of the 6 million Jews who were killed in the Holocaust. At Yad Vashem, the memorial in Israel to the Holocaust, Holocaust survivors, along with 40 dignitaries and leaders, came together, including the presidents of Russia, France, and Germany, plus Britain's Prince of Wales. The World Holocaust Forum is the largest diplomatic event in Israel's history. Leaders were told their country should not take for granted the common values people fought for in World War II. Israel's prime minister said for the Jewish people, Auschwitz is more than an ultimate symbol of evil.
It is also the ultimate symbol of Jewish powerlessness. It is the culmination of what can happen when our people have no voice, no land, no shield.
The ceremony was held not just to remember the past, but to make a pledge about the future and remind the world no society, no democracy is immune to anti-Semitism.
The industrial mass murder of 6 million Jews, the worst crime in the history of humanity, it was committed by my countrymen. And I wish I could say that we Germans have learned from history once and for all. But I cannot say that when hatred is spreading.
The lessons of the Holocaust are searingly relevant to this day. 75 years after the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, hatred and intolerance still lurk in the human heart, still tell new lies, adopt new disguises, and still seek new victims.
75 years on, the lessons of the Holocaust are still searingly relevant today. We'll be back in a moment. In Italy, scientists have discovered new evidence of the gruesome way some people died when Mount Vesuvius erupted back in the year 79. They have determined this shiny black material is actually a human brain. Researchers now think people may not have been vaporized by the superheated gas on volcanic matter, but baked and suffocated. It's the first time vitrified brain matter has been discovered. The U.S. is putting a leash on the long list of pets that are cleared to fly on some airlines as emotional support animals. Many people do carry on dogs and other pets like cats to deal with anxiety or PTSD, but others are accused of abusing the system. Now, that could be coming to an end, as Mike Couteur reports.
Until now, they've been able to fly for free. But the U.S. Department of Transportation is proposing new restrictions on what type of animal air travelers can claim is a service or emotional support aid, thereby allowing the animal to travel inside the passenger cabin on the house. Airlines say it was getting a little out of control, with passengers going beyond dogs and cats, claiming their peacock, pig, and even a miniature horse was a service animal or emotional support.
Our airplane started to look like Noah's Ark. We had every kind of animal there could be, and we had every kind of safety and health issue because of it.
But some air passengers' rights advocates say that's an exaggeration. The U.S. is suggesting only dogs trained to help someone with a disability will be considered a service animal, and they'll be allowed inside the cabin.
The pendulum went too far. There was a legitimate concern that a few people may be abusing the system. What I would have liked to see long ago is significant penalties for those who abuse the system.
Now, Canada doesn't have regulations for service dogs yet. Those are coming into effect in June. Phase 1 will only cover service dogs that have been given special training. So until then, passengers have to follow the rules imposed by their airline. WestJet has an extensive list of support animals it bans for health and safety reasons, including hedgehogs and sugar gliders, which, if you're wondering, is a type of marsupial.
As long as they're not like loud and like in the way of the flight attendants and the staff, I see nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you need the emotional support animal, you should have them there. That's why you have the animal.
The Canadian Transportation Agency is asking Canadians to weigh in as it consults the public on Phase 2 of the rules, which will include untrained emotional support animals other than dogs. Mike Couteur, Global News, Ottawa.
A retired anchorman and co-founder of the nightly newscast on public television in the U.S. has died. For 36 years, Jim Lehrer helped deliver the news on PBS. He co-hosted with his longtime partner, Canadian journalist Robert McNeil. PBS says he reported the news with a clear sense of purpose and integrity, even as the world of media changed around him. Lehrer also became known as the Dean of Moderators, frequently taking part in presidential debates. He retired in 2011. PBS says Lehrer died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 85. Off duty and on the ice next, a BC police officer swaps her badge for blades at the NHL All-Star weekend. More than 200 skiers were stranded on a broken chairlift in Quebec last night. It happened at around 7 o'clock at the Bromont Ski Resort. A mechanical failure stopped the chairlift, and when it couldn't be fixed, staff used a harness and cables to get people down one by one. Some skiers say they were stuck for 4.5 hours. There'll be some new faces at the NHL All-Star weekend, new to the NHL, but certainly not to hockey. 10 women will represent Canada, including Megan Agosta from BC. She's already got 3 Olympic gold medals and a silver, plus she's a police officer. But this, she says, will be a moment of a lifetime. Robin Gill explains why.
When Megan Agosta is on a rink, it calms her. The 32-year-old is already mentally prepared to go to the NHL All-Star game.
Personally, I think it's going to be one of the highlights in my career.
Agosta has 4 Olympics under her blades. The last time Team Canada got together was at the 2018 Winter Games. It was a heartbreaking loss to the Americans in a shootout. Team USA won gold. Canada was left with second-place silver. Now the 2 teams shall meet again in a 3-on-3 competition.
To be able to play against, one of the best countries in the world, it's always a battle. And we're going to go there and we're going to have a lot of fun, but it is going to be a battle for, the 20 minutes that we have.
Constable Megan Agosta.
6 years ago, Agosta became a constable with the Vancouver Police Department. Between fighting crime and raising a daughter, she's had to find time on the ice. She's the only member of the women's team to hold a full-time job, while the others get to breathe hockey on a regular basis.
One of my biggest challenges is living here in Vancouver, there's no women's league. So I find myself practicing with the midget AAA guys.
In some ways, she's going it alone on the West Coast. But when she and her team get together for the All-Star game, it will be an opportunity to make a statement about women in hockey.
We need to have a professional women's league, and we need to get women's hockey to, where it deserves to be, and that's playing the game we love, eating, sleeping, training like the men, and getting paid and being financially stable while doing it.
Politics aside, Agosta is ready to play. Hockey is her passion, and she still has her sights set on the Olympics in 2022 because she's far from being done with the game. Robin Gill, Global News, Surrey, BC.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Dawna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is 108 Mile Ranch in BC. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.